Hey, y'all, what's up? Frazzle Dad Alan Clayton here. So, today I spent the day watching this mess right here, uh, holding megabanks accountable oversight of America's largest consumer. Anyway, U.S. House Committee on Financial Services. All right, so here's who was there: Andy Cesare, William Demchak, Jamie Dimon, Jane Fraser, Brian Moynihan, William Rogers Jr., and Charles Scharf. So, who was there for the committee? Well, they were in and out because I guess they're all on other committees. Well, I mean, they are on other committees and they have phone calls and lobbying appointments and crap like that. All right, so we're going to start with the witnesses. I'm going to give you the top three, and I'm going to give you the bottom three. So my top three witnesses were Jamie Dimon, Brian Moynihan, and William Demchak. All three of these guys were very well prepared. They were very well spoken, and they know what's going on. The other three, I don't know. Andy Cesare, chairman and president of U.S. Bank Corp., they didn't really ask much of him today. Jane Fraser, CEO of Citigroup, if you guys follow me at all, I've talked about her. She doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence as a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and especially one that's of one of the largest banks in the country. And William Rogers, CEO of Truist Financial, they didn't really call on him a lot. Charles Scharf, President and CEO of Wells Fargo, they did call on him a lot. However, he did better than the last guy that was there. I did watch when the previous CEO was there. He did better than that, but definitely was not on the level of William Demchak, Jamie Dimon, and Brian Moynihan. All right, so let's get to my good and bad of those that are on the committee. Now, when I watch these committee meetings, I'm like, who's going to ask real questions and who's going to grandstand? And there were three people, well, really four. I'm not really saying that this guy was good. I'm giving him like an honorable mention. Bill Huizenga, his line of questioning was really good. I thought the best actually was Vincent Gonzalez. That dude was outstanding in his line of questioning. And Ed Perlmutter. They stuck to, hey, why is this going on? What can we do about it? What is your outlook? What role do you guys have in it? And what role are other things at play? And then my honorable mention goes to Bill Posey. And then there's some average people. Now for my bad. Now, for those that don't know, three of the squad are on this committee. However, only one of them made my bad list. So top of the list, actually, on my bad list is actually Pete Sessions. I believe he's a Republican. He didn't ask a question. Like, he was totally pointless. He came on and he was just, you guys are wonderful. And, you guys perform a fantastic role in the community, and you guys are titans of the economy. And like, dude, do you have a question? He didn't have a question. He just came on to talk about how great they are. So I was like, okay. But my list of bad would be Brad Sherman. He asked complex questions that had complex answers, but he just wanted a yes or a no. Al Green, I'm not even going to talk about what he was talking about on here. Rashida Tlaib, I think her role was just to come on and scold the CEOs. And Cindy Axne was, she's from Des Moines, Iowa, and she was just basically into the Wells Fargo guys. She was like, hey, you're getting out of the mortgage business. Am I going to have a lot of people get laid off here in Des Moines? But what she doesn't realize is that if Wells Fargo leaves that area, someone else is going to come in, and these people may still be able to have jobs. Anyway, That's neither here nor there. All right, so some of the highlights. Very interesting. It was interesting because I've never really been impressed with Brian Moynihan on earnings calls, but he did a fantastic job today. And the witnesses, I call them witnesses, the CEOs, they didn't really get into it with the legislatures. They should have it a couple times, but they took some swipes at them, and it was pretty fun to watch. And then I got a thing where there's actually a legislators throwing a swipe at each other. Obviously, there was like Democrats versus Republicans, but the one I want to show you is Democrat versus Democrat. It's hilarious. All right, so one of the things that was brought up was let's see. Well, I already talked about Bill Sherman. It's kind of interesting to watch these questions get asked because I don't know if it's because he's the longest tenured CEO. And if you follow me at all, you know everybody should know I'm not a fan of anybody on either side of this debate. I'm just going in there open-minded to see if we can glean some information from the CEOs, maybe some things that they may know. So, Jamie Dimon was asked about the central bank digital currency, CBDC, and they said, do you think this is going to be a problem? And he said, no, if it's done properly. And then he said, but I'm sure it won't be done properly. So that was interesting. Ed Perlmutter asked, this was a good question, and if you've been listening to their earnings calls, you already knew the answer to this. This didn't shed any light on anything, but he asked if they were properly capitalized should the bottom fall out of the housing market, and they have a bunch of foreclosures. They all said yes because they have been building cash reserves for quite some time. I already talked about Cindy Axne. They are actually working on a national consumer data protection legislation. Interesting. Moynihan made a comment about how do they compete with the four big banks in China, and he said a few things, but really the one thing that he said that just kind of opens your mind is he said, look, those banks would have no problem acquiring any one of us. That was really telling, talking about the size of China's banks. Now, China's going through some of their own financial crises right now, but that was quite telling. There was some back and forth about banks restricting cash deposits, and they basically they kind of went back and forth about it for a little bit. It was a minor back and forth, but Jamie Dimon was like, yeah, well, basically he said, those aren't our policies. Those are policies that you've given to us. So the banks restricting cash deposits has more to do with regulations coming down on them rather than their own policies. I thought that was interesting. That was something I actually did not know. I should have known that, but I didn't. Jamie Dimon was asked if he was, which is an appropriate question since the Fed came out and raised interest rates 75 basis points today. He was asked, how confident are you that the Fed is going to facilitate a soft landing? And he leans forward and he just has this grin on his face and he's like, I have my fingers crossed. So he obviously has no faith in the Fed with a soft landing. And that was pretty much it for the end of the day. Rashida Tlaib was on a thing about ESG and how much it would cost, and Jamie Dimon was saying it's costing them hundreds of millions of dollars. But the most interesting point of the day is this. So I've never really sat and watched all of like the full day's worth of hearings. I've checked in and out throughout the day. I've caught highlights. I've done it a couple different ways. I've never actually sat down and watched the whole thing all the way through. But today I did because of everything going on in the economy. It occurred to me, and maybe it occurred to some of you out there, but it had never occurred to me. I don't think, at least on the Democrat side, I don't think they come up with their own questions. It seems like their stuff is given to them because, oddly enough, the person that showed up that was she was the least prepared, most prepared person was AOC. So she came out and she was really on Brian Moynihan about the PPP loans and how there were people that were having issues with getting their loans taken care of and getting them to, I can't remember the term. Let's see if we can find it here. Let's see. Anyway, oh, here we go. Let's see here. Whoops, I guess we need to speed this up because I was trying to... This is fantastic, folks. So, folks, there it was. Not a bad line of questioning, but it was. But did y'all see that side eye from Maxine? Well, I paused it and got a screenshot, and yeah, this is what led me to believe that they don't come up with their own questions, because that is the look of, you had one job. You had one job and you failed. So anyway, those were kind of the highlights from today. There was a few other things out there, but I think we want to go ahead and get this thing wrapped up. And so yeah, there we go. There's some highlights from the Finance Committee hearing with the CEOs. They're back again tomorrow, and we'll see what kind of highlights we can come up with then. So, all right then. We'll catch up with y'all later. Frazzle Dad out. Maybe.